Right. Stream should be going. I don't know, Thomas, if you want to go over there and just get a check to make sure all the sound stuff is normal, which it should be. I mean, I haven't changed anything.
Check 1, 2.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Don't call it a comeback! I've been here for weeks!
That was a little loud. You
Always
overmodulated
loud.
quite a bit on that.
Yeah, that's the problem. I get way too excited when we do this stuff, man.
Check.
That sounds alright to me. I mean, nobody was talking over anybody.
Can you talk some more?
I just sang the ABCs for you. All of the ones I knew.
Do you guys not hear it cutting out completely?
I'm not listening to the stream. You mean are we all cutting
Yeah.
out? Or is
No, me and John are like really badly.
God damn it.
That's very good. I guess I should wrap up and just say thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Eric, do you have Dropbox disabled and stuff?
Yeah, I got everything turned off. And you said I wasn't breaking up, so yeah, there's that. See if there's anything else. There's really nothing else for me to turn off. Turn off PHP Toolbox, PHP or JetBrains Toolbox.
I might actually disconnect.
I don't even know how to close this. That doesn't work. Why is it that like this every freaking week now, man? Like we go weeks without it being a problem, and all of a sudden, every week it's a problem. All right, let me listen to the live stream myself and see what I hear. Uno momento.
You will not hear me talking because I am not talking. Just the way it is.
Come on, let's go.
See, I sound wonderful.
It's so bad.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you are breaking up. Thomas, you need to talk because I can't hear you at all. You just
1, 2, 3. Check. This is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, do you hear how bad it's breaking up?
For who?
Me and you.
All right. Well, I mean,
As long as our local recording's good, we're good.
that's how I feel. If Brian J wants to muscle through this, we welcome you, Brian J. But yeah,
Check your.
I'm not gonna worry about it.
Actually, you know what, Eric?
Hmm?
You want to restart Skype.
Really? All right, I'll do that.
Yeah, try
Restarting
that.
Skype. All right. Skype has been restarted. Let me go back over to OBS here. Share a screen with you guys.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Where the heck is OBS? Did I just close OBS?
OBS is streaming.
Is it?
Well, it fixed it a little bit.
I cannot find OBS on my system right now. I don't know how it's streaming, but we'll go with it. And then when I have to stop it, I guess I'll stop it. I have no icons for OBS anywhere. Like, if OBS is running, it's totally a virus at this point. I guess I can stop sharing my screen with you guys because there's nothing for you to look at. Are you still hearing us on YouTube, or we're still streaming?
Yeah.
No, can't be.
Yeah, we're still streaming. All right.
Did you pull up your application monitor, your force quit
Activity
application?
mode? I mean,
No.
I can do that. Let me see if it's under force quit here. Hold on one second. Force quit. It's not in force quit. OBS. This is terrifying. It is under activity monitor. It's at 200% CPU. So there's that we got going for us.
What about just trying to start it?
I think I tried that and it didn't start. Yeah. It's nowhere. I say we just go with it. We got the local recordings. If this stream stops, then the stream stops. We're sorry for anybody watching us live. I'm sure you'll be able to continue with your day, but
It'll be more funny at the end when you can't, when you're live streaming the entire night.
definitely gonna be shutting down the computer after this. All right, let's do this. We ready? It's episode 165 of your favorite kid show and mine, PHP Ugly. I am your friendly neighborhood, Eric Van Johnson, and with me are my good friends, my neighbors, my pals, John Congdon.
Hello, hello.
And Thomas Rideout.
Good evening.
Our goal this week is to be a fast and efficient podcast. How are we doing?
And we're off to a terrible start at that. I must say.
We've been doing this for literally years now. I mean, I can't even joke about it. It's like we've actually been doing this for years, and we are still this bad. I mean, that alone takes like a special skill set of just not caring and not paying enough attention to what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're
can't
quite
get
good
this
at that.
We can't get the settings right, sound right, streaming right.
Oh, how has everybody been doing, my friends?
Pretty good.
Good. Hey, do you remember me telling you about switching a client from Memcache to Redis for their sessions?
And how excited you were about it, and how much it was fantastic. Yes.
It took the request time for their transactions or their page loads from a little over 400 milliseconds, drop over 100 milliseconds off. So 25 to 33% savings in time, right? Fantastic news. I kept wondering, why in the hell was that the fact? Why did switching from Memcache to Redis improve site speed? I came up with hypothesis like, oh, it's because all the data and the sessions were stored in the same Memcache server, so we were just splitting the load. Everything was fine.
Right, you had this absurd theory that it was like a bottlenecking.
Yeah, or that Redis was just that much faster than Memcache. That had to be it, right? That was the
Absolutely.
reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, no, not the
Nope.
case at all.
No.
Not
No,
at
sir.
all. Yeah, what bugs start rolling in, and you're like, this makes no sense. It makes no sense that these two inserts happened at the same time. Why are there two records
Whoa,
in this database
whoa,
and they're
whoa,
not page?
whoa, whoa. Two inserts at the same time.
Yeah, like why is this data duplicating? What is going on here? And so we had four of us on a call today, just brainstorming what is it. And finally it hit me. I'm like, wait, we switched to Redis. I bet session locking isn't a thing.
Oh,
Well, it's a thing. It's disabled by default in the
uh,
Redis session driver.
right. Yeah, it's like security. It's a thing. It's just not there by default.
Right.
Yeah.
So so without realizing it, the application relies on that session locking to prevent certain things from happening. So there were multiple Ajax calls coming in to save some data. And the way the system was written, it's if there isn't a row for this user, one. When we get two Ajax requests that basically the same exact time and you're not locking them, both of them get back saying, hey, there's no record, and they both insert. Mystery,
Wow.
mystery solved.
Well, how's that mystery solved though? How does that account for the savings in time?
It doesn't. Well, it accounts for the savings in time because the way sessions work by default with the file-based sessions or with Memcache, session locking is turned on. So if you make two Ajax requests or just two requests in general, the first one comes in. Once you do a session start, it locks the session. The second one comes in, it can't do anything once you hit session start until the first process releases the lock. So
Hmm.
So the 100 milliseconds you shaved off was the render time for the first page.
no, the 100 milliseconds, it wasn't the render time for the first page. It was
It was the time between session start and session end for the first request.
no, it's just yeah, other requests were slowing down the others, other whether Ajax requests or other page requests. You know, you pull up a page and you do three Ajax calls. The other two are blocked while the first one finishes.
So what's the performance now? Is it just back to what it was?
That was going to be my
No,
question.
I don't. It went back up slightly, but nowhere near what it was because we also took the time while doing it to look at some of the settings. So changing the session wait time from the default 2 seconds to like a quarter of a second, 250 milliseconds. So if it is locked, try again within 250 milliseconds. Try that 10, 20 times, whatever we set it to. So I don't think it will jump back up that 100 millisecond savings that we got. It should go up a little bit. It'll be interesting to find out over the next couple days as we get more data to analyze.
Cool, man.
No, not cool. I mean, yes and no. It was
Yeah.
frustrating. I'm happy that I have no clue why, but that thought popped into my head because without that, trying to solve this random why are there two records thing was a nightmare.
Yeah, that's one of those experience is the only teacher at that point things.
That is so true because I've run into things like that before. Very rarely.
So, do you guys want to hear a fun story?
I would love to hear a fun story.
Kind of the wrong podcast, but sure.
I got to be, probably for the first time in my daughter's 21 years of existence, like a hero in her eyes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was fun because my kids they've always had like a kind of an understanding of what I do, and I even had one daughter who briefly showed some interest in coding, and so kind of get the fact that I write programs and I code things to make things happen, but don't really understand the practical aspect of it. Like, when do you think to do this? When don't you think to do this? And, it's just like one of those things. Like, okay, that's what Dad does. He codes when things need coding. I don't know when things need coding, but it's whatever. Well, now my daughters have jobs now, and they work for a living. And I come home, and I'm just kind of glancing over my daughter's shoulder, and I see she has two spreadsheets open, and I know this behavior. Like, I'm looking at her, and I'm like, I know what she's
It's
doing.
drugs. Yeah, she's got to be doing drugs.
So I ask her, I'm like, "Hon, what are you doing here?" And she's, "Oh, well, we have this list of supporters." She works for this social group, and we have this list of supporters, and if the supporters are on this list but not on this list, I need to add them to this list, and if they're on that list but not this list, I need to add them to this list. And so I just have to go through and look back and forth. I'm like, how many people do you have on the list? And she goes, there's about 7,000. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, how long is this taking you? She goes, well, I'm in the C's, so it's taking me about 2 hours to get to C's. I'm like, baby, I can code this for you. And I feel like it was a game show. I can code this for you in 20 minutes. She goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, those spreadsheets, can you export them? Just export them to CSVs. And my daughter even knows what that is. So she exports them both to CSV files. I sit down at my computer. She sits down next to me, and I'm explaining to her. I'm like, okay, the first thing we're going to do, and it's all in PHP. I'm like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull in the first file. Now we're going to iterate over each row in that file. And
please tell me you did this in Vim in front of her just to show off.
No, it was Storm. I'm like, then we'll pull in the second file, and we'll see if the email from the first file is in the second file. She's like, and my daughter in her typical like human way of thinking is, well, there's 3,000 emails in the second file and 2,000 in the first file, so for every email, you're going to check against 3,000 other emails to see if it's there? I'm like, yeah. She's, how long is that going to take? I'm like a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
So I code all this up. It takes us about 10, 15 minutes to code it up. And I'm walking her through it, and I'm explaining to it. And I hit run, and this is the scariest part. I hit run, and it executes correctly on the first try. I'm like, wait. I'm like, I screwed up somewhere, honey. Hold on.
He hit run, and the printer exploded.
But it was great because she even said, she goes, well, can you just print out the difference? Because she wanted to do a, oh, that was the other thing. Even before we got there, I said, because she was actually using two popular services for these mailing lists. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know this service you're talking about here, which was MailChimp. I'm like, I know they have a mail merge function. So all you need to do is take the list from the other one and pull it in, and MailChimp should be smart enough to find the dupes for you and let you cancel those out. And she's like, yeah, we already thought about that, and she gave me some reason why they couldn't do that. Like somebody had broken it or something had happened. I'm like, all right, that's cool, whatever. And then we went down the coding path. Anyways, got the whole thing done. We went from, she went from 2 hours getting through the A's, B's, and C's to an hour later, we had coded this whole solution. We had, found the differences in both files, got everything merged together, and she was done. And it was like the first time, like, my daughter, she looked at me and she was just kind of like, now that was impressive. I'm still like, yep, that's what I do. I do that all the time.
Yeah, that's my daily in and out thing.
Yeah, just knocking out problems, solving the world's problems. That's me. It felt good. So I need to do more of those. I don't know.
Yeah, my kids just get a really glassy-eyed stare whenever they see my screen. It's
They're
My
not
girls
supposed to
have-
see your screen.
Yeah, that's true, Thomas. You're
Well,
the last screen.
my coding screen.
My girls have always expressed a little interest in it. Like there are moments where they find it fascinating, but not that fascinating. But it is fun.
Yeah, my oldest is 17 now, and this whole teenage rebellion thing has taken a much different turn than I ever expected. He was explaining to me the other night, well, I'm not a liberal. And I looked at him like, yeah, you are. It's like, I can have my own opinions. I'm like, yeah, but I know your opinions. You're a liberal. It's this whole thing with teenagers right now is the backlash to having liberal parents is trying to be really conservative, but doing so by not understanding anything that they're talking about.
I say I'm already lost. So his feelings on what a liberal was, that they couldn't have their own.
His feeling on what a liberal is what the Turning Point USA stuff says, where they're like, libs want open borders and they want murderers to come in, and it's all these talking points that are just completely ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But he thinks that's what a liberal is not a liberal, a lib. And that all of the worst elements of liberal society are what liberals are.
Yeah. His comment about he can have his own opinion is Thomas doesn't know him. You don't know
Right.
me. I have my own opinion.
So we took the political compass quiz, which is 6 pages, and I think it's 20 questions per page.
Okay, first off, if you got a 17-year-old boy to answer 20 pages, 6-page long, what is that? 180.
It's 120 questions. Yeah.
I applaud you, my friend. That was
Well,
impressive.
I had to. Some of them are really obscure questions. They're all just like one sentence things, but he didn't understand some of them, so I had to like just paraphrase them completely. Like, should gay people be allowed to get married? Mm. And he was a little upset to find that he was a liberal socialist. And his closest aligned contemporary was Gandhi's political outlook.
Just shattered his whole puberty right there.
Yeah. So he says, well, I don't know what that thing says. I don't know where it's getting its information. And I'm like, well, you just answered 120 questions. So that's where it gets it. But it's man, I mean, he just turned 17, and that's rough.
Yeah.
I was
we've had fun conversations of, I have one daughter who actually tries to get into the political arena, so I don't want to spoil it by giving ammunition, but we've had some very spirited conversations of, political parties that on paper seem like a good idea, but history has proven never has succeeded.
Yeah. I too registered as libertarian when I turned 18.
So yeah,
but then there's
fun stuff.
But then there's Greta. Are you guys following this at all?
Yeah, of course.
Oh wait, what's Greta? I don't know what Greta is.
The 16-year-old that came over and spoke at the UN.
Oh, about climate control and all that?
Climate change.
Yeah.
And everyone was really upset because she was talking about how airplane transport is one of the leading causes of global warming, and everyone's like, well, you're the one at the UN, how'd you get here? And she was like, took a train and I'm sailing home.
Well, yeah, she also sailed over here, right?
Yeah. So like she
took a long way to prove a point.
Yeah. Well, and she's fascinated because she is not talking about conservative politics at all. She's just talking about global warming and the need to deal with it. But it's the conservatives that are getting really, really upset that that she is talking, and they're saying, well, you're a 16-year-old. What do you know about global warming? And my thought immediately was, well, if you're not going to listen to the scientists about global warming, then a 16-year-old might be more convincing. Like, you pick one or the other. You can't say you don't have experience, you can't tell me, and then when someone does have experience, tell them that they're part of a vast international conspiracy to save the planet. But she really ruffled feathers at the UN, and it was fantastic.
My favorite conversation around it so far has been on Facebook with Allison Giannato, Snipey Head, on there. She posted something, somebody replied with a picture saying the Nazis used children to spread propaganda too.
I saw that.
And the conversation back and forth was great, with the person who shared that picture saying that they believe in climate change and never back down. It's like, how could you, when people are pointing out that 16-year-olds have opinions, it's not adults putting them up to it often, and you still won't back down? It was just driving me mad.
Yeah, I had someone on Facebook that I knew post about it, and they said that this was the liberal Democrats were using her, and it was the most disgusting thing the Democrats had ever done. And my immediate thought was, if that's the most disgusting thing a Democrat has ever done, the Republicans really need a mirror. Like, there needs to be a little bit of reflection on, allowing a 16-year-old to speak her mind and helping fund travels around the world. That's the most disgusting thing we can do. And I know we don't get into politics here.
I was just about to say something.
but to me, what she's saying is not a political issue. It's a purely scientific issue, and it becomes political because there's two sides of the political spectrum that are diametrically opposed as to how to approach this. One of them is basically upset that she is talking at all, and the other one is saying, yes, 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 keep talking as much as you can. It's this bizarre bifurcation of politics in America right now, where if you're on one side, you have to support everything that one side supports. And with the latest political moves in Congress, I mean, that's going to fall apart real bad.
Yep, it is interesting times we live in.
It was strange to have that conversation with my son about his political perspectives, where he essentially said he wasn't liberal but had no idea about anything related to politics whatsoever. And then on TV was a girl a year younger than him who was actively engaged in politics at the UN, and my son was banging on his desk playing Fortnite. And it just sort of went, well, can't win them all. I've got two more to give a shot to. They'll be 17 in a year and a half.
Yeah, I still do that. I tell you, I look at things other people have accomplished by the time they were half my age now. Half my age. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? I'm terrible. I'm a terrible person, man. I can't get anything done.
Well, I think I had some effect, though, because he did come home from school and admit that he had a sort of existential crisis at school and just wanted to be alone for a while the next day. It's like, well, those will happen, yeah.
Okay, I'm changing topics. John, you never responded to me today about if you were interested in going to Sunshine PHP. Did you guys see this drama today?
Well, it started yesterday.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It did start yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to talk to you about your other question later, too.
The sponsorship?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear about this, Thomas?
I didn't hear anything about this. What is this?
Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
So we're going to talk about it because this is what we do, okay? We talk about everything around PHP and the PHP community, and we go to the dark corners that nobody else wants to go to because, we're rating hogs, and that's what we need all the sponsorship we can get, so we go to the dark corners. No. I really don't know the complete story, and I know a lot of people in these circles, and nobody's been able to piece together the complete story for me.
Oh,
But
that story.
yeah, so you woke up yesterday to Twitter. There was a tweet out there by an individual who I'm not going to say their Twitter handle or anything because it's not worth mentioning them. But he was physically threatening another person within specifically the Laravel community, Mike Stoffer. Matt Stoffer, I don't know these people, physically threatening him and a couple other people, essentially saying, that he wanted to fight one of them at Sunshine PHP and this and that. And then, what's her name? Samantha? I forget their names. Anyway, another Twitter person pipes in and calls the first poster out as somebody.
Samantha Geitz.
What is it?
Samantha Geitz.
Yeah, Samantha Geitz, who I'm a fan of. If you recall, I talked about, I think last year at Lyricon, I saw her speak for the first time, and I really like her. Like, no BS. This is how I code. This is what we do. This is cool. This is blah. I really liked her presentation style. But anyways, I guess this year at Lyricon, she had posted a couple months ago how she ended up in this uncomfortable situation and how, fortunately, her Matt showed up and had gotten between her and this other person and made her feel better about the situation. But the fact that she felt uncomfortable at this conference that she typically feels very comfortable and secure at was a jarring sensation. And I don't know if she mentioned Lyricon by name, but I put it together because Matt Stauffer only goes to a couple conferences, and I just assumed it was Lyricon when she was tweeting it. I was having a conversation with somebody today, and he said I don't think she ever said it was Lyricon, but I had assumed it was Lyricon. She had confirmed it was Lyricon in her tweets yesterday, and then called this guy out as that creepy individual. So this started a whole thread, a bunch of back and forth tweets. And I'm like watching this, and I'm like, are they trolling us? Like, is this some sort of like they think they're being funny? Because this is about to backfire on them big time.
Yeah, that was the thing that me was the video that he posted in his karate gi. I just sort of went, oh, that seems like a bad comedy bit.
Yeah.
Like he took it.
I thought the same thing.
He pulled that post down or that tweet down.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Samantha said the coward deleted his post. Good thing I saved copies, and she links to where she had saved it. She said, "Can't stop the signal."
The one thing I can say with the women in the PHP community that I have met at the conferences is you don't fuck with them. You mentioned Snipey earlier. Man, you meet her and from like the moment you meet her, don't fuck with her.
Yeah.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I know. I called her a troll once, and that was like the last time I spoke to her. She doesn't speak to me anymore. And I said it with the most sincerity. I thought it was cute, but apparently it wasn't. Anyways, it turns out this person who was claiming that he had that he owned Titan.com, which is Matt Stauffer's company and the domain, and Matt owed him a job and this and that, and I'm not even sure like what all that was about. But this person was well enough established where he was actually a sponsor for Sunshine PHP. And it's like, okay, that's awkward.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like you have a sponsor for another conference threatening somebody and telling them to come to the conference. I mean, if this is a joke, this is a terrible joke. And if it's not a joke, somebody should step in and do something. And we know the organizers of Sunshine PHP. Matter of fact, he was very helpful when we were working on Wave PHP. And he stepped in and basically said, listen, we appreciate the fact you're willing to sponsor us, but we're going to return that sponsorship money, and we appreciate you not showing up because you're not welcome and you can't come. So it was like, and that's a huge deal because I know how much. I don't know if they tweeted it, but I know how much he was sponsoring. His sponsorship level was at Sunshine, and it was not a cheap sponsorship level. I mean, it was a nice chunk of change, and so for even a well-established conference like Sunshine PHP, to give up, a chunk of sponsorship money, and that speaks tons for their morals and ethics. They stand behind their code of conduct, and they expect everybody to adhere to it.
I think the thread, the whole thread had eventually derailed to where there was more than one accusation of inappropriate conduct too. Is that other people had said that they saw this behavior or experienced this behavior in the past, and that they just hadn't said anything about it.
Really, I didn't see all that.
It's a rough situation. I can say, there was alcohol involved.
You think?
And that's you gotta be. I mean, smart.
I'm willing. I was going to say I'm willing to be controversial here. Okay, I'm willing to say that I recognize we live in a world where physical confrontations happen, and where ultimately, when people are disagreeing, for things to escalate to a physical confrontation is going to happen, and it's the way of the world. Now, it happening in this arena, in this situation, it's like, what are you thinking? It's like this. You're a business person. You're trying to get a job in this industry, and you're establishing this as a baseline. It's not going to work. It's just not going to. You can be as much of a man as you want to be. You can want to fight people as much as you want to fight people, but there's a time and place for that sort of behavior. This is neither the time nor the place. And we talk about this all the time. This shit will follow you forever. I mean, people like Samantha, they're going to make sure this stuff doesn't go away. It'll keep posted. And you can have your muscle heads out there and be like, whatever, you soft people, blah blah. It's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with people going to blows. It's going to happen. It's the way of our world. I was just telling John a couple weeks ago. I can't remember the last time I got into a physical confrontation, and I kind of had the urge to get into a physical confrontation. And I miss playing sports because that was one of the places where you could take that anxiety out on in an appropriate kind of arena.
Yeah, but bowling though, I mean, we had to apologize to so many people.
Whatever. I don't care if it's bowling, lawn darts. You block my lane, man. I'm going after you. But I don't get it. I mean,
the situation was weird because it doesn't seem like adult behavior.
And it's a tweet. Like, he had to record that, check the recording, say, yeah, that looks good. I'm going to tweet it. And at no point did anything fire in that brain of his of, maybe this isn't the best approach to resolving this confrontation here. Or whatever it is he was even trying to do. It's like you went through that whole process and nothing stopped you, huh? Nothing.
My understanding of it was that he was mad at Matt for intervening on this woman's behalf.
Ah, you think that's what it was, huh?
Because I know that that's what happened. And
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
no,
Yeah, I know. That's what.
I thought that was a couple years ago that happened with somebody else.
yes, yeah, it's
Well, what happened with
Yeah.
Samantha, John? I think happened this year at Laracon. Just going based
I
off the
think there were a couple.
timeline.
Yeah, there were a couple of incidents. She said Matt stepped in on something a couple years ago, and then when an opening came up, she jumped at the opportunity.
Mm,
And I think she's been there more than a few months.
mm,
I could be wrong.
yeah.
Anyway,
It's still. I mean, we talked about it during Wave PHP. John and I had a situation where we had to address it, and it is uncomfortable. And that was like that felt like it was a little different because I mean, the guy was like, oh, we were all out drinking. We weren't at the conference. We were at a bar. I just thought everybody was being, silly and goofy. And it's like, okay, well, according to everybody else there, you were the only one that thought that way. And regardless of whether you're at the conference or not at the conference, you're with conference attendees. And so the code of conduct still applies. So we had to let him go. But this seems different. It's just like, you just you just how are you not banned from Twitter at this point? Like, you physically threatened to assault somebody on Twitter. Don't they ban people for that?
no.
That's-
Twitter
They
doesn't
should.
anyone.
it's the theory.
Anyways, I want to go to Sunshine PHP now. Now, I mean, I've wanted to go to Sunshine PHP for a while, but now it's like now I really want to go because I like want to give them my money now and say thank you for being such a great conference.
February 6th through 8th, 2020 in
Yes.
sunny Florida.
Yes, February in sunny Florida might be a good place to be. I don't know. We have other conferences we have to address first. We have PHP World coming up, which I hear is going to
Yeah.
suck. They have like these B-rated speakers talking. John, are you talking right?
Oh my goodness.
No, PHP World's coming up. Super excited about that. Of course, John's giving a couple talks. And I'm also very envious that we have Marcus Moore of the DiegoDev Group is going to Australia to speak at Laracon AU on
Nice.
behavior-driven development. Matter of fact, you know what? That's what you're doing at Talkland, isn't it, John?
On what?
BDD?
No,
No, he's doing TDD.
Oh, you're doing TDD. Listen, all of our peeps are doing talks on testing. I mean, that's just how we roll here at DiegoDev. We have two people who do a lot of testing, and they talk about it.
Need to do more. Always need
but
to do more.
I want to go to. I mean, as much as I'm looking forward to going to Virginia in October, going to Sydney, Australia, really seems like it would be so much cooler.
As much as I'm dreading going to Virginia in October, going to Australia sounds fucking horrible. I've upped my medication, become distant from my family. I'm in a ball of sweat waiting for October 21st.
Oh man, it'll be fun. You have a good time. I need to lose some weight though. I need to get back on my one wheel. My one wheel. I'm loving my one wheel. So
How's that a weight loss tool?
because I want to ride it like on a regular basis now, and I exceed the maximum weight capacity of it, and I don't want to break it.
Oh, okay. You're not like riding it to lose weight. I thought you had
No.
misunderstood how that thing worked.
No, I'm trying to lose weight so I can ride it on. I've never had like a reason. I mean, I've had reasons to lose weight, like every doctor I've spoken to in other situations. But for me myself, I like being a big guy. I enjoy being a big guy. So I've never personally had like a driving factor to make me want to lose weight as much as I do this one wheel. Because I want to ride this one wheel everywhere. I love this thing. It's so much fun.
You said your
So now I
wife
have
listens
to
to the
lose-
podcast?
Occasionally.
Let's see how that works out this time.
Yeah.
I've never been so driven to lose weight and be there for something than as my one wheel.
I just want to make sure I'm
Yeah.
around.
That thing could last 20 years, and I want to get the most out of it.
Yes, the one wheel is awesome. I
have-
got my fender to it.
I have some fantastic Doom and Gloom, some throwback classic Doom and Gloom.
I would bring up your Doom and Gloom screen, but I don't have OBS.
I know. Nerf has announced their newest blaster, and they shoot further than ever before.
What's that, like 4 feet?
What?
No. I believe it's over 100 now.
What? 100 feet?
120 feet. Yeah, 120 feet.
No way.
The design of the dart has fins and rifling to induce spin. And it's the new blaster is a motorized blaster. And the darts have DRM.
What?
The darts have DRM.
Yeah, so
you can't go get other darts. You can't buy third-party darts for it,
really?
right?
Yeah, so these new darts, they have what I assume is an RFID tag in them. It will cost you $10 to get 20 darts, and if the gun doesn't recognize the dart that is in the chamber, it will skip that chamber and go to the next one and simply not shoot.
I'm sure people can hack that pretty soon.
I mean, Nerf, of course, being one of the most hacked toys for adults on the planet, they'll have a fix for this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The question is, though, is if you have to go through the process of hacking it to get third-party darts to work, and it's the dart design that really matters in the distance that it's shot, you're going to have a hard time finding companies that are willing to produce third-party darts that are only for the hacker enthusiasts. And it's even as far as the fact that Nerf is reaching for a patent on the foam they're using for this new dart. It's an ultra high density polyfill style dart, but still kind of a bummer. DRM sneaking into every single possible thing that it can.
You know, though, but is it really a bummer? I mean, it's like the whole razor blade thing. You know, it's like streams to make sure you buy the darts from them. Does it really matter that much? Either buy the damn thing and buy the darts from them, or don't buy the thing. I get what you're saying as far as like, yeah, you know, DRM is getting into everything, and I get that, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but does it really matter? I don't know. I don't know if I care enough.
I kind of agree with you on that.
But I will say, Thomas, that your link did take me down to another path. Have you guys seen these Echo frames yet? The Amazon Echo frames, the new glasses with Echo installed?
The one thing I did hear is that the guy announcing the new Echo earpods and how much Amazon was going to support them did so while wearing AirPods.
Okay.
Did an interview where they were talking about the new Amazon earpiece headsets and how great they were, but he literally had AirPods in his ears at the time recording the video.
Okay.
Seems like a bit of a goof.
Oh, the Apple. He had the Apple AirPods in his ears.
Right. While talking about what's called the Echo Buds, he was wearing the Apple AirPods.
No, maybe he doesn't have the Echo Buds yet. You really shouldn't yell at your wife like that. We were just talking about how this is inappropriate behavior for the PHP community. Anyways, I was talking about Echo Frames, though, the glasses. So if you haven't seen these, because I haven't seen these, apparently they're building Echo into glasses, which look pretty cool to me. And I have actually been looking to buy something very similar. So there's another thing out there called North Focals, which are supposed to be as close to the Tony Stark Edith glasses that are out there. And it's... I lost you, Thomas.
That was a video that was put out by, like a sponsored video by Hacksmith, where they were saying this thing is...
Yeah.
And that's garbage. That's not what
You
these
think
are.
it's garbage too?
Yes.
So wait. Well, the first thing I wanted to understand is there are these things different? Like, is the
Yes.
North Focals are different than the Amazon glasses?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fundamental difference here is that the North Focals are not controlled by your voice. They're controlled by a joystick that you wear on your finger like a ring.
Actually, they're controlled by either.
I was under the impression that the voice control was not the most functional thing.
Well, I don't know about that then. So, okay. So you're saying you wouldn't, you don't, the Focals don't impress you, because they impressed the hell out of me. This is what I wanted Google Glass to become. Like, I didn't want that cyborg looking wearing thing. I wanted something integrated into a frame that wasn't obvious that it was there. And I'm like, that's what, when Google Glass becomes that, I will buy that. And then when I was turned on to this, I'm like, okay, this kind of looks like what I want. And fortunately they don't have a local shop anywhere near. They had a pop-up up in LA last week, or maybe it was this week actually, and I couldn't make it up there, but I want these now. But now we have the Echo Glass.
What do you want from them? What are you looking to do?
Okay, so this is the thing, is that they do significantly less than my $80 smartwatch. They have a roughly 1-day battery life, and they're $600 for the non-prescription glasses. So,
right. So $600. This may surprise you, but $600 for frames is actually not that crazy, much less intelligent frames. So, yeah, that's a reality of the cost. It is, they are expensive frames, but again, they have a computer built in. To answer your question, John, I mean, if all they did were simulate what now my smartwatch is doing in my glasses, I would actually be very happy with just that. And I don't even know if it does that, to be completely honest with you, because the hacker, whatever the YouTube channel is, Hacksmith, they kept referencing Echo stuff. Like, I guess it has Amazon Alexa built in. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, okay, well, there's Amazon Alexa is pretty limited in smart functionality as far as like my ecosystem goes. I'm heavily invested in the Google ecosystem, so I would want to see like email notifications pop up or IM notifications pop up or things like that. But yeah, that's all it does. It's basically your watch, and it projects on the inside of your eyeglass. There's a little spot that it can project. You can do the whole navigation thing if you want. You can ask for weather or that sort of thing.
yeah, I mean, it basically just gets notifications. The notifications that would show up on your lock screen, it gets.
Today. Tomorrow it's going to have facial recognition, and you'll never forget a name ever again.
Camera built in, like Google Glass did?
No, it doesn't. No, that is one of the... That would actually be... So that... I think that's my next evolution, right? Is to have these things where, I'm sitting in a meeting and I have a client that's rambling and then he says something that makes sense. I would love to be able to tell my glasses, okay, the last 10 minutes, tag that and save it somewhere because I want to watch and listen to that again and later. I would love that. Like I would love to have some smart glasses constantly recording everything I'm looking at and give it the ability to say, okay, what just happened, save it, tag it, and let me access that at a later date.
Well, I think that's cool and all. And the Echo frames, they look like they're just going to beat that poor company to death. But that wasn't the big announcement that inspired me from Amazon's little announcement conference.
What? Wow, we were just talking about Samantha, and she is on a Twitter rampage right now. Holy smokes! Oh, I think I opened up. Oh, no, I opened up the thread. Somebody just retweeted her, and I clicked it, and it opened up the whole thread. Sorry about that. Sorry, Thomas. Go ahead.
She's listening to us live.
So
everyone does.
Of course.
What I found really interesting from Amazon's big conference was the new voice for the Amazon Echo.
It's fucking awesome.
It's more than awesome, and this is the first voice that's a celebrity voice. It's the first voice using their natural speech engine.
Ask me the weather one more time. Ask me the weather one more time.
So this is this is cool to me for two things. So number one,
just say the name first.
The first voice is Samuel L. Jackson.
There you go.
And when you buy the skill, when you buy a new voice, it has a explicit mode that you can enable and disable.
Does it really?
It does. So you can have it tell you the weather. Nope, not at all. You can have it tell you the weather, or you can have it tell you the weather, motherfucker.
Oh, that is going to be so awesome.
They're selling it for 99 cents for the rest of 2019, and then the price will go up to $5. It's not released yet, but you can ask your device to hear it by saying activation word, introduce me to Samuel L. Jackson, and it will give you a little speech in his voice. But what's interesting to me
is Thomas. Do it. I want to hear what this says.
You won't be able to hear it on mine.
John, do you have one there in the office?
I do not.
Oh, you guys suck.
The thing that I'm really excited about is that it's using their natural language technology. It's using more than just a derived set of responses, but it's able to generate new responses that sound natural using someone's recorded voice. And if you watch
deepfakes, I'm telling you.
If you watch Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, you get the feeling that we're close to that technology, but we don't have anywhere actually approaching it in real life. That technology is possible, but none of our devices can do it. There's no smartness to any of the smart devices I have. They can tell me the weather, they can play music, they can read the news to me, but they really can't get intention out of something that I say. And that's what I'm hoping to see coming up. But this is just the first voice that will be available. There is some thought that Gordon Ramsay will be next. But I don't know. For me, my device is it's a music player that I can ask to start playing a specific genre of music, and that's basically all I use it for.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I use mine for a little bit more than that. We have deep conversations. Yeah.
See,
Well,
so the
I had
99
to
cents for
unplug
you is
mine.
really a deal. You get to
So
hang out.
when I leave the house, like when we're leaving, if everybody's leaving the house, we tell her to go into dog time protocol, and she announces that the house is going into dog time protocol, that she will take care of the pets, and then she turns on lights, she turns on music, she makes sure the AC's turned off, and it's kind of cool because she's like talking and she goes, "Don't worry, we will take care of I'll take care of the pets." That's how she's in dog time protocol, and then you can walk out and she starts turning on the music, she turns on the lights, and AC goes off, and it's cool. I enjoy. Between Alexa and the Google stuff, I find myself using Alexa way more for some reason. I don't know why that is, because I like the Google stuff more, and I have the Google here on my desk. But it seems to me like the Alexa, I don't know, it's permeating the market way more than Google is.
See, I
Yeah.
use the Google here in the office, but I had to turn off my Echo devices around the house because of my kids. Like
Why?
it's awesome that they can play the music they want to play until one starts a song and the other one stops it. And, no, I want to play, and then it's just this back and forth battle, and it's like, nope.
Done.
Interesting.
Yep.
Wow, that's like millennial sort of issues there.
And there's
That is
self,
crazy. I didn't even think about that.
there's just no self control on their part. So it's like, if you guys don't stop right now, it's got to go away. And of course, they won't stop. So
Well,
you
there
can't-
is a kid mode now.
What's a
it
kid?
doesn't matter if they can control it. I mean,
I think one of the things that you can do is sign it to your voice so that only your voice can control it.
I don't think that's true, but if it is, at least I would love. So the one thing I always wanted was it to have voice recognition. So when I told it to play music, it played from my Amazon list, and when my wife Beck asked it to play music, it would play from her list.
Right.
Right now it's like everything is my account, and as far as I understand, it only hears commands. Like it's just a general command. I don't know that it's differentiating between us.
Well, Amazon did announce that they're focusing on kids and that the newest firmware has support for a walkie-talkie style mode that kids can use to communicate to each other and to parents. That is different from the drop-in mode that exists already.
I'll have to check it out some more when I finally get around to plugging it back in.
Yeah, I hear
So, like,
you on that. That's an interesting problem. I wonder what
it's so
other
cute when you have,
new problems you have.
when, yeah, it's cute when you have a 3-year-old, talking to it and controlling it.
Yeah. I got to be a parent again for a couple days. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I had my brother-in-law was visiting from Hawaii, and I guess island fever is a real thing because
Did you buy him a
Just-
car seat?
oh, well, no, he had a car
Did you-
seat. The wife
I
bought
thought your
two
wife-
car seats. Yeah, the wife bought 2 car seats, and he brought a car seat. But
You got to turn off that voice purchasing because that just lets him get right in there.
But yeah, it was fun. It was fun having a little guy around the house so we watched them for one night because they were just so happy to be somewhere different than the island that they're on in Hawaii, which is just absolute torture.
Yeah, those poor kids.
But it was funny because I was just asking a friend of mine who had lived in Hawaii and is actually a psychiatrist. I'm like, I never even thought about it, but I'm like, is that a thing? I'm like, because I know here in the States, is you're tired of this state, you drive to another state. But you can't do that in Hawaii. He goes, oh yeah. He says, it's called island fever. It's a very real thing. People have issues with that. You start to feel claustrophobic. You start to feel trapped. And
Yeah, they did a documentary series about that called Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyways, they went out for a night. We got to watch the kid overnight, and we just had a blast. We watched Shrek and had a good time. I enjoy kids. I'm a baby person. I enjoy kids to a certain age. Then once they can start to talk, then I'm done with them. Once they can rat me out on Uncle E was drinking his medicine again, Aunt Beck. I'm like, okay, kid, you're out of here.
Yeah, my wife was trying to convince me to get this nice couch that our friend was selling, and I looked at her. I'm like, "Are you insane? Or we have two 16-year-olds and a 17-year-old, and you want to buy a couch now? Just wait 2 years. We have a pleather couch that you can spill on and it just wipes right off. That's all we need for 2 years. Then we can start buying nice things. But we're done with nice things for now."
Wait, you're telling me this happens all the way through their teenage years too?
Oh my God, yes.
For sure.
Come on.
It happened for me into my 30s. I was an absolute mess until 32.
So last year?
Ugh, I wish. My blood pressure was so much lower.
Have you made any changes for that?
Yeah, he
So
moved to a higher altitude. So.
We're running a little long here. It's been a good episode. No, but on top of my blood pressure, I also had a breakfast for dinner one night, which was just like eggs and bacon and waffles. And the next morning, both my wife and I were just completely sick to our stomachs, like sharp pains in our stomachs. And I was just completely stopped up for a day. And I'm like, awesome. This is great. I'm so glad getting older is so comfortable and wonderful, where I can't process the wrong order of taking food in. If I have eggs too late at night, I'm just constipated the next day. This is great.
You just don't know how to live right. I'm older than either one of you. I just came from the doctor today. She's like, I'm in great freaking health. So, whatever.
Yeah, well, I have twice the number of testicles as you. I don't know the relevance of that, but
damn it!
I always got to put that out there.
All right, what else?
Nah.
John, I think we need to
wrap
put
up.
one of those.
Got homework to do.
We need to put one of those image captchas on the SDPHP new website, because we have 300 people try to create user accounts, and I don't think any of them are real.
That's actually was going to be my question: is how is the serverless SDPHP stuff going?
I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I mean, we got it to a deployed state. We've been using, to be completely honest with you, we've been using the SDPHP code base as like a training code base for new developers we bring on. So like we bring on new developers and we make them work in the SDPHP code base for a couple of weeks before putting them on other projects. So it's been kind of multifunctional. Features have been breaking and features have been getting implemented. But the serverless piece has been pretty flawless. Now, what is starting to happen is we're coming up to the end of the month now, so we've had a full month run on the serverless infrastructure, and we'll be able to get some pricing on that. And we already know it's going to be higher than what we were running on the small DigitalOcean box we had it running on. The question is what's that baseline going to actually look like for a small application? The Vapor interface actually shows you projections on the cost associated to the requests that have been made to it, I can see that, and that's down.
That's
That was
really
like,
nice.
yeah. I think the last time I checked, it was like 35 cents for the month. But again, that excludes the base price of a lot of the features you have to install, and one of the more expensive ones. So I always complained about how expensive Amazon RDS was. It was one of the more expensive services on AWS, and we have that deployed with the serverless environment. But come to find out, the freaking API gateway, which I don't even know physically what that is. Like, is that just some proxy server running somewhere? That cost for that damn thing is through the freaking roof. I mean, it is super freaking expensive to have those freaking API gateways. So I haven't looked at the totals recently, but man, that it's going to be expensive for sure.
Well, one of the big articles that made its rounds this week was written by Einar Egleson. So you know he's a good coder.
That's
Because
racist.
the harder the name is to pronounce, the better they are at coding.
Okay.
So he titled his post, "Serverless, 15% slower and 8 times more expensive."
I don't know if I agree with those numbers. Why would he? So right off the bat, the testing I did with speed, if you discount the warm up costs for the initial hit, which everybody likes to talk about, but even that wasn't that much slower than a normal web request. Uh, but you discount that, I always saw faster speeds. I mean, that might have just been the way my applications were configured, but I've never seen drastically slower speeds. The cost, I mean, he might be right on the cost, depending on what you're used to running on. If you're used to running on a cheap DigitalOcean minimum server with hosting your database, your web server, and everything, to a serverless architecture, I don't know. Maybe he's right there, perhaps.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's a very clickbaity headline for the article. And when you dig into it, this is porting an existing code base over to serverless based off of a tutorial he read. And then he ran tests against his new serverless architecture and his previous Beanstalk architecture coded in C#. And he only ran 100. He only ran 100 tests on each server.
What was the language on the serverless environment?
So he introduces it here and says it's currently hosted on AWS S3 to store HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images. An API written in C# hosted on Elastic Beanstalk using Linux servers running .NET Core with Docker.
Okay.
So it already sounds like a bizarre use case there, where it's Linux running .NET off Docker.
Mm.
And then they have a CloudFront CDN running both the static files and S3 in the API. Going serverless, he went through a very nice tutorial on hosting ASP.NET Web APIs using the serverless framework, and found that he only had to add a simple config file, add one dependency, and one small startup class to his existing API project, and then he deployed it. Which sounds to me like a gross misunderstanding of how serverless works. Does it not? I mean, like, serverless is a different architecture fundamentally. You have to have a different mindset for when you spin up and what you spin up.
Well, so not necessarily. So that's very much probably the config file he needed to add. The mindset from a coding perspective comes into understanding how you reference things within your site. So you need to understand that like everything isn't living in a file system under a folder. Like things are all over the place, and you have to reference them accordingly. So like with the Laravel approach, again, a straight up out of the box Laravel application that you can deploy on a droplet server as a standalone server, you can also deploy through Vapor as a serverless application. And if you've coded everything correctly and you've addressed your assets correctly and everything, they run identically. So it's not like there's this paradigm. There's this shift in thinking of, okay, well, if I wasn't coding for a serverless environment, I would just do this, this, and this. It's pretty much the same higher level architecture of the application itself. You just have to understand how you now. What really starts to bend your mind a little bit is that you realize, like from a serverless perspective, your back-end logic, your API endpoints, and your front-end logic can now be abstracted away. They don't need to be together anymore. So you can actually have your front-end Vue.js powered website living on an S3 bucket being served by a static web server. You have all your APIs that the Vue.js application depends on deployed in the serverless environment that it's accessing. So now you've abstracted away those two things, and you can continue to abstract away these components and realize that you need less and less core code base the more services you take advantage of. So everything that Amazon has to offer, from authentication to caching to database, you start to stack those components into a serverless environment, and your core code base actually can shrink, if that's the route you want to go. If it's not, if the route, and this is actually a request that we've gotten from several clients, a couple of clients, I shouldn't say several, because John jinxed us last week and nobody calls us anymore. But we've had from a couple clients is, if you want to introduce me to a serverless architecture, you need to guarantee me that same application will run on a server. And the way serverless works today, that's possible. But it doesn't need to be possible. You're right in the sense, Thomas, that you could architect for a serverless environment and completely decouple almost every aspect, every component of your application, which could then never be coupled back together and run on a normal server, because you're now dependent on these services.
Right.
But you don't have to do that. And even with the PHP Bref, before Vapor came out, the testing I was doing, that's exactly what I did. I had deployed a new application for a client, and I'm like, okay, let me see what it would take to run this on Bref now. And it was pretty close to the same thing. I had to install the Bref dependency, a composer install. I had to, I think I had to create a config file, and that's where you did your configuration for the serverless environment, and then I pretty much deployed it at that point.
Well, the talk that I listened to at Wave PHP went a lot more into detail about the nature of structuring your application for the purpose of serverless, and that the big mistake you can make is just try to port something straight over. That the architecture of serverless requires a different thought process for minimizing expenses, that you don't do things the same way. And I wish I could remember more of that discussion. I could give it to you. But the thing I can say is that, like any article on the internet that you write, if there's a comment section, people will show up and correct you. And I recommend this article just for the comment section, because he lists out in detail what he did and the result that he got from it. And the comments are very helpful. For example, recommending using ALB instead of the API gateway. ALB is a completely different product, and it can handle the same load it can call Lambda instances directly, and it doesn't use the API gateway pricing. It doesn't use any of that stuff. There are also people who gave instructions on how to write your own API gateway, clone or replacement, so that you don't have to pay for that service, and the limitations of each one of these components. And also recommending putting like a load balancer in front of it. There's someone here who got Cloudflare working in front of Lambda. And so even if the article is making these sort of radical claims about how things aren't working, the comment section provides a lot of information and a lot of solutions for the same thing that you're talking about with your expenses on serverless.
Mm.
Yeah, with the API gateway, I think you want that if you're using some of the more advanced features of it, such as rate limiting and authentication. So it can do like
ALB does that.
Does it really?
Yeah, ALB does do the same kind of rate limiting, and a load balancer in front of the serverless architecture can also do that same kind of load balancing. Just rate limiting and stuff like that. And you can do rate limiting with caching and stuff like that as well. Like they said with Cloudflare, they link directly to a guide on how to use serverless applications without API gateway, and the things you have to do to, cover your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, you're killing me. I'm in the middle of importing a 10 gigabyte database, and it's slow as molasses.
During the show probably wasn't the best time to dive into that, but Godspeed. John is doing my homework for me. I can't. I've got to support him. He's parsing XML files for me, or actually parsing XML responses for me. So I'm more than appreciative of his existence right now.
Which means we should wrap this. I got to do it tonight.
Yeah.
Can you do my homework too?
Oh gosh.
My boss bought me the MongoDB Complete Developer's Guide on Udemy or Udemy.
Dude, MongoDB is the easiest thing.
This guide is 17 hours long.
Dude, you write a document, you read a document. That's all there is. You're good, man.
17 hours
MongoDB
long.
is the only document store that is ACID compliant. Did you know that? You did know that because we talked about it on the show before.
I did know that. I gave a presentation on it.
Actually, in the tool, because of that, the database tool I use now, that Table Plus, actually has a MongoDB connection you can define. So you can actually connect to a MongoDB server. Looks like it's still in beta, but it's there. So yes, MongoDB rocks the world. We still need to figure out our NoSQL solution for our mobile apps. We have this. We're trying to bridge it. The whole document store approach is ugly. Ugly from the perspective of nobody can decide on a standards way of doing it, and everybody kind of does things differently enough where nobody plays well with anybody else. It's very plain because you've got a couple of really good players out there. You got things like CouchDB, Firebase, MongoDB, and none of them like the clients don't. You would think that they're all document stores. Can't one client talk to like all three of them? And nope, they're all different enough. They all have their own different syntax, their own way of searching for documents, of reading documents, of adding documents. It's just, and none of them play well with everything. So either something is like very focused on mobile development, which kind of becomes a pain for everything else, or like MongoDB, which is now ACID compliant and really seems like from a coder's perspective, a go-to sort of solution for a document store, becomes very challenging for mobile in trying to keep multiple instances in sync, and it's such a pain in the ass. I constantly have to have this conversation with our mobile developer because we need a solution, and trying to find a solution is pain. And I didn't even mention the MySQL stuff that's available now.
Well, thank you, Eric, for closing us out on some doom and gloom.
You're welcome. It's my job.
You've been listening to PHP Ugly, episode 147. I'm Tom Rideout.
Wait,
I'm John
what?
Congdon. Wait, that's not the right number.
I'm Eric Johnson. Are you trolling?
What's the right? 165?
The realization of where his
I just
life
released
has been.
160. I just released 166.
You said 147. though.
You said 147 a second ago.
It's been an hour and a half. I'm Tom Rideout.
I'm Eric Johnson.
I'm John Congdon for the second time.
Keep it
ugly.
ugly.
That
Oh, my
went off the
goodness.
rails quickly. I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, here's the question, Eric: is how do you take us offline now?
Okay. That's a good question. Let me take Activity Monitor and force quit this bad boy. Thank you, everybody. Who was out there? Brian J. was hanging with us for a long time. Anybody else join? Brian, thanks for watching, brother. I think I'm about to end this